This is Josh Kosman for the Capital Forum interview series. We're interviewing Mark Chicu from Cornerstone Research. Thanks a lot for joining us.
It's great to be here.
You're an expert in economic analysis. Please tell us how important economic analysis is and how it's changing for plaintiffs in antitrust cases.
Yeah, I think whether we're talking about mergers or some other kind of conduct, economic analysis, at least as an economist, I see it often underpinning kind of the basis of a lot of the claims, even the legal elements. From my perspective, biased as I may be, I do think that economic analysis still remains central to antitrust claims. From a plaintiff's perspective, I think it's always going to be important to have in mind, even as the legal claims are being written out, what is the economic analysis? What are the arguments that are going to be able to support that? Because of the ultimately prominent role that an economist is going to likely play at trial or along the way.
How more or less important is it becoming? And I'm thinking in Nexstar Tegna, which I don't believe you're involved in. Nexstar didn't even have an economist make its argument, and the deal had been cleared by the DOJ and the FCC, although it's also being challenged in court. But it seemed odd there was no economist there.
Yeah, there are certain circumstances where if it's like I said, as you know, I'm not involved, but where if the arguments are primarily a narrative that doesn't require analysis per se, counsel may make the choice to present that themselves without using an expert witness. That would be different, I think, in my mind, to saying that economics is not still very important to the way the arguments are presented. It wouldn't be the first time that a party decides not to put on an economist as part of their case. But again, coming from an economist's perspective, I still think that economics is a really important ingredient. Above my pay grade to decide whether economists should be on the stand, I guess.
How much is it changing? It almost seems like in the recent cases, it's not as prominent as it has been in prior cases. How's the world changing?
Yeah,
or do you agree with that?
Yeah, so I've observed in some of the work that I've been doing that certainly counsel are thinking about multiple angles. I haven't really observed my own work to be changing it fundamentally. I think there's maybe an increased awareness that there might be different ways to get to the desired outcome, and maybe the way that plays out at the end is going to depend on the attorney's tastes for one approach versus another. I haven't seen a change in the economic work that's been done. I guess I haven't been involved in a case where, say, an economist was not actually part of the litigation strategy. But so I haven't observed a change in the kind of economics work that's being done or in the demand for that. Though, I think we've seen in the news instances where I dare say even the strict application of antitrust law hasn't always seemed to be the thing that determines an outcome.
How much is the government, this administration, how much do they care about economic analysis?
So I was at the DOJ through July of 2025. That's really all I can comment on firsthand. Up until that point, I really saw no change. There's rhetoric both in the start of this administration and even honestly in the last administration where there was some perception that economics was taking a back seat. Certainly in the last administration, I didn't see that to be the case. Certainly from the inside, economists always had a seat at the table, and that was true through the end of my time at DOJ. Economists always had a seat at the table and were always part of the discussion. And so my perception is that that remained very important to the decision-making process. It's always been the case that the ultimate decision maker, the DOJ, the Assistant Attorney General, the sort of equivalent decision-making group at FTC, that they have multiple factors they take into account when they decide which direction to go with a case. Economics is only one of those. But, insofar as economics is an important ingredient in that, I think that's remained true. What may have changed, at least in certain circumstances, is the weight or the strength of some of these other factors in determining what ultimately, what direction is taken. Again, to use that phrase, that's sort of above my pay grade, but at least I've remained optimistic about the importance of economics as an input to the final decision.
How important is economics in what, regardless of who the president is a real changing landscape? This new technology is coming on board,
Mm-hmm.
so that's going to hurt this old technology,
Mm-hmm.
or is it? So how does that change? A lot of these deals that are coming up have to do directly with that. So how do you analyze that from an economic analysis perspective when you're comparing an existing technology and a new technology and how it's competing?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's this sort of easy to kind of push aside the details to simply say, well, it depends on the case, it depends on the circumstance. But I think in general, at least what I've observed is, let's take the example of AI and algorithmic pricing, which has obviously been prominent in a lot of cases or in some high-profile cases recently. The economics that underlie that are ultimately, I think, quite similar or the same as the economics that underlie price-fixing cases from 10, 20 years ago. The question is understanding the technology, understanding how the economics that we've always used applies to the new setting. So I don't know that the role of economics or the economics itself is fundamentally different. I mean, economics is just kind of a set of tools for understanding, let's say, competition in this setting. Understanding how the technology interacts with, how it allows competitors to interact, how new technology and old technology may themselves kind of interact in the marketplace, in the way that players compete, and then connecting that to the economics. I mean, that's a tough task, but it's, I don't think, at its core, different to what antitrust economists have been doing for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It seems to me, not being a professional economist, that in the past, one would look at, okay, maybe this future technology is coming, but you got to base the decision on what the history is right now and looking back.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely seem to be cases right now going on, and I know I don't want to cross any lines, where people are saying, who are trying to get a deal done, hey, this is coming.
Yeah. So right, that's a different kind of let's call it issue with technology, where we might say, well, AI is going to disrupt everything, or this technology is going to disrupt the market. So maybe here and now it looks like more market power is being acquired, but we're simply doing that to keep up with the dynamics of our industry. Again, it's going to be case by case. My leaning is to kind of to try and understand and not just say dynamics, therefore everything is going to be fine. I think we want to be able to still try and understand what the changes are and what time frame are they expected in, and how is that going to affect what might be perceived to be a change in market power today. But I agree that things seem to be changing maybe at a pace that they weren't, let's call it 10 years ago, thanks to the advent of AI in particular. I think it makes it tricky for antitrust economists to kind of make the kind of predictions that they typically try to or have made in a setting where we've got maybe more unknowns. I don't have an answer to that. It's tricky. It's tricky.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.